Welcome to Masters of Self University podcast, your highest source of sacred truths and universal wisdom. Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Rachel Fiori, mystic, spiritual teacher, psychic healer, and founder of Masters of Self University. Join our journey of soul transformation as we deep dive into this latest episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Masters of Self University podcast. I'm your host, Ellie Lee.
And I'm your host, Morley.
And today we are joined by MSU Mystical Life Coach, Treloar Hocking, everybody.
Hey, Treloar, welcome.
Welcome, nice Treloar. Yes, we love when you're here. Like I say every episode, let's just dive into it because you've got a really, really interesting topic today, past life trauma.
Yes. So, interestingly enough, I found Rachel Fiori, our founder at Masters of Self University, because I was ready to tap into this trauma. I didn't know what it was at the time. And in my first meeting with her, my first coaching session, it was introduced at a very gentle level. And I have spent a lot of time learning these techniques and really going into healing myself through the ways that we learn at Masters of Self University. And the beauty of that is that it's made the space for me once and for all to finally understand what Rachel was dangling the little carrot of 10 years ago for me. I had reached a ceiling in my life where I felt like I wasn't able to break through on my own. And that's why coaching is such a great thing, right? When we can reach out to people for support. And so what I learned back then was that I had a trauma in a past life, and I was killed at 3 years old. And that was the carrot. And it did actually release a lot of fear, because I recognized that a lot of fear that I had in this lifetime was tied up with this little girl in confusion of why at 3 years old you would be killed. But I didn't understand the magnitude of this. So flash forward to now, a couple of weeks ago, I was really, really ready to dive into this and do my work around it. And what I learned and recognized and now know is that this past life that I had was I was a child and had a mother, as most of us do. And that mother was my mother today in this lifetime. And what I now understand is that my beautiful little soul entered the womb in this lifetime with this confusion and trauma of being killed as a 3-year-old. And it was ignited and remembered in my soul because I was about to have a relationship with the same mother. And what's extraordinary about that is I could never reach the healing on this, because even as a 52-year-old, I was still carrying the confusion of that 3-year-old. How could this trauma have happened to her? Why did it happen to her? What was so wrong with this little girl that she deserved to be killed for it? Right. And I wasn't able to access that until now. And the reason I wasn't able to access that is because this little spirit in this womb showed up with some programming already. So no matter what happened in her life, there was always a lens of confusion and misunderstanding. And it was literally the root of my unworthiness, the patterns that I run, which is the biggest patterns that I run. I had thousands of stories to validate my unworthiness in this lifetime. And no matter how much I dug at those stories in this lifetime, I couldn't get to the root. And it's because the root wasn't in this lifetime.
I remember, didn't we do a podcast on unworthiness with you?
Yeah, probably. It's a big one for me.
I think I remember you talking about it, and I remember feeling, or maybe it was in a class, I can't exactly remember, but I remember you talking about this, and the feeling I got from you was that this unworthiness was never ending. And I
Yes.
could feel it was almost like there was a frustration behind what you were saying. It was like, I just keep going in and there's more and more and more and more. And it doesn't matter how much I do it, it never ends. And obviously this is why, is because there was another piece that you hadn't even got to yet of why you were feeling that way.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she gave me 2 stories 10 years ago. So this is just one of them. Isn't that interesting that it was coupled with 2 things? Because there was a lot of fear about me showing up in my power. Right. And so one of them, the other story is about being in your power. And this one is about this deep confusion of how this little creature, this 3-year-old, wasn't allowed to live. Like her family made a decision to remove her from existence. And so I thought, what was so wrong with me? And so I was carrying all of that into this lifetime without even having an experience yet in this lifetime. Bizarre, right? Yeah. And it felt unending, you know, like no matter what I did, Danny, you know, I'm like, are you kidding me? Am I not good at this work? You know, because right. You know, and so it just adds to that powerlessness in a way, because you feel like I'm never going to get there, never going to get there, no matter how much I go in.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to share that with people, because you will. Like I got to a point, like I've done so much work that one day it was like, now's the time. And I was like, well, now's the time for what? Now the time is to understand that story that was carroted, that hung in front of you. And I'll tell you what, I had all kinds of fantasies about that carrot. Right? About that little glimpse of what was there inside of me showing up in this lifetime. All kinds of funky fantasies and stories that you tell yourself, you know, like, oh, she must have had some amazing psychic gifts. And it was like the time of the witch hunt, or, you know, like seriously, you know, and just to kind of, you know, love and appreciate that part of my ego. Right.
Right.
Yeah. But, you know, but the real story is that it was this relationship that I was having right now with my mother, right? And here I was, this little baby with her. And my mom has the same trauma. She just has her flavor of that lifetime, right? And so not only did I bring in my version of that, my mom brought that version of that in, and I could feel it because we had the connection in that lifetime. So as this little teeny baby, and as highly sensitive as I am, I was very well aware that all of the patterns my mom was running, like I didn't understand them, but I knew that a lot of them were about me, right? So as she held me, this is a baby that was killed because of her. Does she deserve this baby? What's going to happen this time with this baby? So whatever that story is for her, I was picking up on this as a little child, and it just was packing on more and more unworthiness. And then just add the fact that I'm a twin and there was 2 of us, right? And so she had to share our love, right? So yeah, you know, and so bless her heart. And so what's so extraordinary is to gain this level of appreciation for my mother, you know, and some of the patterns that she ran, some acceptance and some allowance and some honoring for my mother. And, you know, it's not my job to fathom what she's going through in her lifetime, but she has her version of the trauma to live out with me. That's why we're together again.
And has she spoke to you about that?
No, I mean, we haven't talked about this past life. We have definitely worked together to heal some of the generational trauma in our family. And I've been really blessed to support her in healing some of the decisions that she's made in this lifetime, which, by the way, are an exact mirror of that lifetime. She's already had to give up another baby. It just wasn't me this time.
What?
And that baby didn't have to die. That baby got adopted out. So when I'm going to cry, because the level of empathy that I feel for her, you know, and there isn't room for blame in how hard my life was, because I've got this mother again, if that makes sense. There's not room for blame there. There's
Go
just
into
room
that.
for empathy.
Go into that, because it's really hard for people, I think, to fully understand that. So
Yeah. Yes. So, you know, when we're wounded by our parents, because every parent wounds their child, it's, and you become aware that they wounded you, you can continue the cycle of woundedness. And instead of going in and healing yourself, which is where the true transformation can occur, heal the wounding from, you know, your parent wounding you. This is where it needs to occur, is within ourselves. It's very common and easy to just blame that outwardly on them. And you should have known better. And you know what? They should have known better, but they didn't, you know. And so there's an acceptance there that we can grow our love around the understanding that, unfortunately, in our society, our parents don't know better. They're wounded parents, are their wounded children trying to parent. And this is what I have talked about in the past, is, you know, this generational continual woundedness over and over. And so for me to know that that's the story on our planet between generations gives me the ability to start to empathize with it. And instead of naming and blaming and pointing fingers, because in reality, I'm just pointing them back at me, I'm the one who gets to decide to heal that. And in reality, it's not my responsibility to heal my mother for that past life or this life. But even though it isn't my responsibility to support her in that way, it is my responsibility to heal myself. Then I can decide to support her in her healing, because I'm coming from not a wounded place, but a place of centeredness and groundedness and healing myself in order to actually be any good for her to begin with. Does that make sense? And so, you know, I understand those things for me. And that allows me to just appreciate the fact that she has a journey all of her own, just like I do, just like everyone else on the planet. We're all here, you know, beautiful, divine souls having a human experience, and to honor her in her journey. And have gratitude that she decided to sign up for another role with me, so it was up in her freaking face.
Yeah.
Because it sure has been in mine.
Yeah. I have a question for you, though, because, you know, you don't, for people at home, you don't need to experience a past life to move through any kind of trauma when it comes to a parent, right? So even though, you know, you've come to a really powerful place, Treloar, did you still have to process any anger that you did feel, you know, in that past life?
I really appreciate that. Yeah. So, part of the reason why I know this 3-year-old story is such a charge for me is because I used to say things when I was a kid. I had really unrealistic fears of my mother. If I was not going to make curfew, I was freaking the bleep out in the car with the other kids going, "You guys don't understand. There is a shallow grave dug in the backyard for me right now, and my mother is going to kill me."
Wow.
Those were real feelings in my body, because you know what? That shit happened to me.
Wow.
Yes. And so I had a lot of fear about my mom, is, you know, and so when I started to heal this, did I get angry at her? I know I've been really angry at my mom. It was more in my younger years, I would say. And so really tapping back into that, I can feel a lot of resentment that I had towards her. I had a lot of disappointment in her choices that affected me. So yeah, I definitely harbored, you know, some feelings about how, you know, she was playing that out for us in our lifetime together. And that was our journey together. Does that help?
Yeah, massively.
Yeah, big time.
And just to tie, you know, these two parts that you were talking together, you speaking up about the truth of what happened and being honest about how you felt isn't blaming her. It's just talking about, no, this is what happened and this is how I felt. That doesn't mean we're blaming her. And, you know, this has happened. It happens with whenever you start speaking out on podcasts or you start speaking about the truth of what happened during certain times. And people think like everything gets filtered through someone's programs and they think that you're there blaming everyone. And it's like, no, I'm just, this is what happened. This was the outcome of what happened. And this is what I've got to heal. And this is what I'm working on. So I'm talking about the truth of what happened and what is in me and what I'm working on healing. And that isn't by any way saying, oh, this is your fault. And I'm this, come back from that. So beautiful. Thanks for sharing all this. And it's so fascinating to hear you talk about this, because this isn't something that I have like direct experience with. And hearing you say that, when you were a kid, you were having these like completely like unrealistic fears of what's really going on. It's making me think right now, and I'm hoping all the listeners, like, oh, is there any unrealistic fears that I had that maybe didn't match up perfectly with my life and the way that I was thinking and feeling? So it's definitely going to be a point of reflection for me over the next week. Is there any past life that I'm not aware of yet? And I'm sure we all have, to some degree, certain past life traumas that we do carry with us.
Yeah, I mean, now we're on the topic of past lives. I was obviously, like all of us, we did a 6-month mystical life certification program. And my lovely partner, Danny, when we were first beginning to speak, we had a moment where we separated. And we had only known each other for like a month or two when we like decided to part ways. And the way that it affected me didn't feel normal. Like it really felt like something so much deeper. And this is something that I've always struggled with, is like my whole life, like, why am I so attached? And like with every partner, like I get super attached. And then when it ends or when it breaks or whatever it is, like the devastation that I feel, it doesn't add up to the actual situation. And so when I was moving through this, I brought this up in class to Rachel, and Rachel being, as psychic as she is, she was like, well, let's move through because a past life is coming up. And the past life for me was, I was a little boy in Japan, which when she told me that, I was like, oh, I've been Asian before. But anyways, that's besides the point. But she said that what was being shown to her was, I was 3 years old and I was literally clawing at my mother because I was being ripped away from her. And so that trauma has been with me for many lives. And I clearly did not heal it because and when she said that, I remember crying from like this deep place. Like, obviously I don't remember it, but it hit me so hard. I'm like, that makes so much sense, because the way that I feel right now and the way that I have felt so much when like a partner leaves or whatever, it never matches up. It does not add up. And I grew up extremely enmeshed with my parents, but it's not like I was obsessed with my parents. I was enmeshed because I like wasn't allowed to ever do anything without my parents. Like that also didn't make sense to me either. And so when this past life came up, it gave me so much relief, because now I'm like, oh, I'm not like some like psychotic girl who's like just obsessed with like dating and like wanting to be in a relationship. There's a deeper wound here. Yeah. And my job in that moment is to just connect and love that little boy that was ripped away from, his mother at such a tender, ripe, young age, so vulnerable and so traumatic. And I can feel how like in this lifetime, that's what I'm meant to really heal. So yeah, I can relate.
If I remember correctly from the replay that I watched of the class, it was the white knuckle, right?
Yes.
There's the white knuckle, like holding on, like can't let go, like, oh no, what's going to happen? What's going to happen?
And that's how I felt when you and I separated. Like I felt gutted. It was like something was ripped away from me and I was just completely falling apart. And I was like, Ellie, what is going on with you right now? This is not normal. And then I had to move through all of that, and it was beautiful and really empowering. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. And when we are completely unconscious, because there isn't any amount of rationalization, right? And no matter how many layers we've healed, and it's back there, and we're not willing to go back that far, right? Like you sat with that beautiful 4-year-old. If we don't know we need to do that, it's just waiting for it to be discovered.
Yeah.
And the energy that it brings in our lives is really, like a seed. It's a catalyst for a web of misunderstandings. Oh, I'm so sorry. My phone's going off.
It's okay. This is the beauty of real,
for right, real life. This web of misunderstandings happening in my life. And let me give you a clue into one of them. There was a big story in me of being misunderstood. Okay. And it was rooted in this story because I didn't understand what was wrong with me. Why did a 3-year-old need to die? She didn't have enough intellect to understand what was happening. So she brought that confusion in. And so I had this story in my head. Wait till you hear it. That my family was keeping a secret from me, that there was something wrong with me, and that everybody knew what it was but me. And it was so sensitive that they couldn't tell it to me. I needed to be kept in the dark about it. Wow. That was something that I've had since I was a little kid, a story.
Wow.
Can you remember when you started creating that story? Because I can totally relate to exactly what you mean, but in a totally different way.
Yeah.
What age were you?
Well, the first age came to 3 or 4, which is ironic. And then the next age, I'm going to say, is like 7 or 8, because that's when we start to really think, if you will, like for ourselves. And so I think that I had felt it as a little kid, but I started to bring ideas around it about that age. And that just continued to grow, the patterns that I ran of over-explaining myself, of never being powerful because there must be something wrong with me, never truly trusting myself. Like it's, if you think about a little teeny story like that and how much, the web can really affect the way that you show up, your mental patterns, your behavioral patterns, things like that in your life. So,
and when you pour your energy into thinking something over and over again for your whole life, or even just a period, it almost creates its own, consciousness and entity. I did the same thing with one of my core wounds is I feel like I'm broken. There was something wrong with me. And I've been going into this deeply right now. And it stemmed from abandonment wound. And maybe it goes back further than that I haven't fully felt yet. But in my 20s, I drank too much, partied too hard, too many recreational drugs, fell into this dark night of the soul. And I convinced myself that I had broken my brain and that I was beyond repair, like completely beyond repair. And I remember in 2020, maybe it was 2019, doing a Tony Robbins workshop. And we had to write on the board, on like this wooden board, what it was that, we are believing about ourselves that isn't true. And I had to write on, I've fucked up my brain beyond repair. And because I had to break the board, and then I was miraculously healed. Obviously that was all a bunch of bullshit, but it did allow me to at least see that I was creating a certain belief. And I had just fed this thought so much from all the like anxious thoughts and just being trapped in my mind. I fed it so much that I was in complete belief for years and years and years. And I was experiencing physical sensations, and my emotional state was completely in congruence with this thought that I created. And deep down, I see now it stems from this childhood wound of feeling broken and being broken, and I'm broken, there's something wrong with me. And that led to the mental program of, I fucked up my brain beyond repair and I'm done. And we can create these things even as adults. That's why I wanted to bring this up. Even as an adult, we can take a wound and then create a new program from it. And if we fuel that enough with enough fear, enough energy, it will start to manifest in our lives until we have enough consciousness to be aware that we're doing it. And then we have enough power to start to transform that energy.
Oh, that's awesome. And can I just say, like, it sounds like you breaking that board was your carrot, right? I talked, it was like, oh, this is a thing, and so is that first acknowledgement, which is powerful, until you're ready to dig in. Yeah, super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. While you're talking, it's like, you start reflecting on your family, and even my relationship with my mom. I'm like, oh, this isn't our first rodeo.
Oh yeah.
This is not our first time, honey. And reflecting on that, and I think a lot of people's egos want to be like, well, now I need to know what the past lives are and all these things. And it's like, what is meant to be will be. What will come up for you will come up for you if it's divinely, if it's important or not for your journey, right? And like, there's this part of me that like wants to know, like, okay, so what did my mom and I experience? And it's like, Ellie, if you don't need to know that, it won't be presented. Right now, your job is to just go into all the programs that were created because of this relationship in this lifetime with your mom. And it is deep, and there are a lot of layers, and it is complicated. But, even today I spoke to her, and we don't talk a lot because I'm working through a lot. But there are these moments, I think, on our journey, and I wonder if you guys relate to this, where, as you move through the layers of anger and resentment, there are these pockets that I feel of where the more that I spend time with my inner child, I can see her inner child. And while compassion is not always there, definitely not, there are times where I have this overflow of love and understanding for her, but that's only because of how much love and understanding that I give my little self, right? And so for those people at home who are like, now I got to go, hire a past life person or someone to look at my Akashic records. It's like, let's not bypass what's here right now.
Right.
Let's work through what you do know before you even, and then decide if you need to know more, or if you feel like there is more, because there are so many slippery slopes on this journey. And it's like, we're always constantly trying not to go into self and not to look at the wounding and all these things. And it's like, before you bypass, go within and work with what is here right now. So that's something that I feel like is really important, because I think a lot of people at home, like me, like quickly want to go to like what my ego is asking me to do. And it's like, it's all right here, right now. Yeah. What is meant for you?
I'd love to share one of the pieces of wisdom my soul has shared with me. And it came up today as I was helping a client. So I love that you brought this up. And it's that the heart knows and the mind wants to know.
Beautiful.
So your mind is constantly wanting to know.
Yeah.
And the only way we can truly know is to get the hell out of it and feel in our heart. And only once we arrive there can we understand what the knowing is. Our mind was never meant for searching and finding all of this wisdom. It's there to integrate what's coming through our heart, what's coming down from source, what's coming down from our higher selves and our soul through our heart. Our mind is there to help integrate and explore and create. And we get so lost in the mind because this is exactly the society that we've grown up in. We've grown up in this world where everything is so about mind and figuring everything out. And the work that we teach is get the hell out of that thing because it's crazy.
Yep.
Of course, you're going to have crazy thoughts in your mind if there's pain in your heart.
Yes.
I've often wondered, why do I have so dark and crazy thoughts sometimes? And it's because my mind isn't the boss. I've made it the boss because we all have. My heart's the real boss. So while there's pain in my heart, while that lives within there, there's going to be craziness in my mind. There's going to be pain. And the way to dissolve that craziness, for you to understand the thoughts that you're having, is to get out of the mind and feel in your heart, to understand the pain in every cell of your body. That is the true way to understand what it is that we're experiencing, is to feel.
Beautiful.
Extraordinary. Yeah, absolutely. The truth. Yeah. And I'll also couple onto that to say that, Rachel, as a spiritual teacher, is so responsible that she wasn't going to go into the story, that she just gave me the few sentences that were necessary for me to have the journey for myself. Isn't that amazing?
Beautiful.
So yes,
That's
you know,
so
just to
Fiori.
say, yes, it's so key when, you know, there's a lot of very, you know, psychically talented people out there. And it's we have such a divine responsibility with things like that. And Rachel knows those things, and she's teaching those to us, her coaches, right? And we're learning to emulate those. But just to really recognize right now in this moment, all of that divine responsibility, because guess what? Just that bit of information that I was 3 years old and that I was killed, you know, by a member of my family led to me uprooting the biggest root in my existence. The roots are out, people. And my job right now is to continue the healing on that, because those roots were so deep and so big. You know, I need to pack those holes up, if you will, in my fertile soil of my soul with love and compassion and just powerfulness, right? That's what needs to be filled up in there. And in order to do that, I need to grieve all the identities of who I've become in this lifetime from all those stories. Right? All of those things that I decided were going to validate my woundedness, my confusion, my misunderstandings. Yeah. And so that's the process for me right now, is to fill those, you know, root holes, if you will, with powerful love.
Treloar,
It's a work in progress.
Yeah, I'm in the exact same position. And from what I view from listening to people around the world that are, you know, on this path, there's a collective movement of that right now. There's a lot of people that are recognizing, you know, where all these parts of themselves were kind of still attached, and to dissolve those layers, those egoic attachments. And yeah, I'm right there with you, and it's a process, and it's difficult.
Ego's like, run and hide. My mind has told me crazy stories like, you can't do that. Well, that's BS. It really is. You know, it's total BS. We get to do the warrior's work. And every day I get to prove to myself that the mind needs to be in the back seat with duct tape on its face.
Ellie, you've gone through a huge recent process around that, you know, like removing something that's, you know, really been holding you in a certain place.
Mm-hmm. Which one? Which one are you referring to?
I was leaning on the fact that, you know, for 19 years you've been taking antidepressants, and you know, you're completely off them.
Yeah, I've been. So it's almost 3 weeks, almost 3 weeks, and 19 years on those things, on all kinds of different milligrams and pills. And you know, the world couldn't handle my emotions when I was young, and I really thought something was wrong with me. I really remember being a kid, like, why do I see things and feel things that no one around me can? And I convinced myself that I was nuts. Like I was like, there's something wrong with me. And then when I started losing it as a teenager, what they did was shove pills down my throat. And so I have really been brainwashed to believe that I needed those things to function. And it wasn't time for me to get off of it until I found this work, because there was no way that I would have been able to process anything without the work that we learn here at Master Self. And man, it's been 3 beautiful, brutal, the three B's, beautiful, brutal, and brilliant, of just really feeling again.
Yeah.
You know, Treloar, one thing I love about you is, man, I've always looked at you, I'm like, how does she feel as much as she does? Like, you can talk about anything and feel into it and begin to cry. And I cry, but not like you. And then as soon as I got off these pills, I cry at everything. And I'm like, oh, the reason why that was so drawn to you with that whole thing is because it's in me, but I was so blocked, right? And let's keep it real. Like, antidepressants mess with your fields. They mess with you, period, end of story. And I understand that a lot of people need them. And this is just specifically about my journey. And I'm at a place where, like, everything has always been within me. and I don't need to rely on anything outside of me anymore to save me. And it wasn't even saving me. It was killing me. It was really ruining me because it was just blocking me from my true divine self. And just being able to feel and walk this path now with nothing that is clouding me anymore or blurring me anymore has been so liberating and powerful. And I know that it really feels like the beginning of my journey, but it doesn't feel like where I was 3.5 years ago when I awakened. It feels like this is a new awakening. And yeah, I'm at stage 1, level 1 again, but I'm on a whole different playing field now. And I'm just really excited for what this means to me and where I'm headed.
And you're such a goddess. You are, because, look at the work that needed to happen in order for this step to be ready. Yep. Similarly, I was finally ready to look at that past life. Yep. I was finally strong enough, powerful enough.
Yes.
I had healed enough. And that's what you did in order to make that big step.
Yeah. And that really comes down to this comes down to the powerful work that we've been so beautifully gifted in this life, right? I know that our souls chose to go down this path, but we also had a choice on whether or not we were going to go down this path. And I think I can speak for the three of us. We are so passionate about this because we have tried everything else. And man, things would temporarily work or you'd feel better, but it's nothing like this work. This work, there is nowhere to hide, because if you are in a quote unquote negative emotion, or you're uncomfortable, or you're trying to bypass your projecting, it's what programs are you running and how can you bring your unconditional love to it. And I think I'm so in honor of seeing all of us grow in the most expansive and most just, I can't even explain what I witness in all of us and in all of, our clients and the coaches in training right now. Like, we are here to bring the next level. And it really requires divine responsibility over oneself. And seeing in all of you is just, chef's kiss. But yes. Okay. Oh, sorry. I thought I was muted, but yes. Treloar, thank you so much for bringing this topic to us. I think it's going to hit a lot of people right in the hearts. And thank you, Danny, for, always having brilliant things to say. If you want to work with any of us or any of the mystical life coaches at Master Self University, please set up a free consultation with us, and we will break down to you every single program that we offer as coaches, or join the monthly membership that we have. And you can sit with Rachel Fiori and the rest of us bi-monthly live, and you have access to the entire library of live classes that we filmed.
I'd also like to say too, it's such an honor to get to come and share, these personal experiences that we have, because we need to shift. This planet needs to shift. And, like Ellie was saying, those of us who are on the real path, right, who really want to wake up and really shine the light and help people wake up as well. Like, humanity needs us. Mm-hmm. Humanity needs us. It's time to get on the path to heal yourself. We have to start with ourselves. Yep. Right. And, the more that I heal, I get more and more excited about my ability to help somebody, because the spaciousness that I can hold in lightening myself up means that I have enormous spaciousness for someone else to find their way. We get to hold that space because we've been, been through it with each other. And it's such a beautiful gift, and it's such an honor. And please come join us. We would love to help and support you. And let's just make this world a better place for everybody.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. So yeah, and get on that. I think Ellie mentioned it. Did you mention the Discord group? We're making a Discord group. Yeah, we're going to be working on more of creating a community, because we all know how lonely this path can be when we're doing all this work. And what I'll tell you there is, Also, you're not alone in this journey.
Yeah.
I know that there is a lot of loneliness there, and that loneliness is there for you to heal, but you are not alone. There is a whole army and network of people doing this all around the globe. And we are going to try and work our hardest to try and unite everyone and bring them together in oneness consciousness. And we're going to start by making a free Discord community.
Yes.
Love it.
So if you're interested in that, please stay tuned. We are going to be blasting out on socials. If you're super interested, you want to get a head start, be one of the first members, feel free to like drop a DM to Ellie or I on Instagram.
Or you can email us at msu@masterselfuniversity.com.
Yeah, either or. Just find a way to get in contact, because this work is really deep, and sometimes just sharing your journey with her and seeing that there's other humans doing this, like watching and listening to podcasts like this one, it can be really helpful. So if you're interested in that, please reach out. We're going to be blasting it soon, because we need to start really coming together. It's time to rise up and really make this world, as Treloar said, a better place, because there's so much harm out there, and let's rise. It's time, team.
Yep.
Yeah.
Subscribe, rate, review, comment, share, and visit us at masterselfuniversity.com. And until next time, we will see you guys then. Bye.